My name is Stephanie Anderson, and I am the Everyday Learners Director for Utah. Boy, I am just having a hard time today. My name is Stephanie Anderson, and I am the Everyday Learners Director for United Way of Utah County. And we are here with you remotely and making sure that you are safe at home. At United Way of Utah County, we want to make sure that you're safe, but the programs such as Welcome Baby and Everyday Learners and those type of things, we want to make sure that you still can continue to enjoy. So today we're going to have a workshop that's called Shared Reading. But before I begin, I do want to mention again that if you or your family members or any of your friends and neighbors have any needs that they need help with, that they can call 211. We are working very hard to make sure that people in this economic situation have the things to cover them, such as food and shelter. And also, if you do have extra, you can go there and donate to the cause, and all of it will go to help people to make sure that they have their needs. So as we begin today, I want to say to you that there are slides that you can download. There's no videos today, so you don't have to worry about that. And as we go through the video, there's a keyword that I'm going to mention. I'll try to mention it 2 or 3 times so that you can make sure to get it. And at the end of today's class or workshop, you'll be able to click a Google link and fill out a form and say that keyword in it. There'll be some choices. And once you fill out that form, you'll be able to get a free book. I do want you to know that we are running a little behind on our book deliveries. Unfortunately, like other places in the United States, Scholastic is, their delivery time is a little bit longer, and so I was just able to send out the books yesterday for last week's class. So please be patient. We haven't forgotten you, and all the books from either the book reading or the Ready to Learn classes will be mailed as soon as we get the books. So we're going to talk about shared reading. I don't have anyone with me today to change my PowerPoint slides, so I'm going to have to do that by myself. But we are going to talk about what shared reading is and how you can do it at home. One of the things I like about these Ready to Learn classes that I feel like as you listen to them or as if you come to them in a live setting when we normally have them, that you leave thinking, wow, I'm already doing that. And I think for most parents, you do a lot of the things that are necessary to help your kids be prepared to go to school, to be ready to learn. And what I'm hoping what we do in a lot of these classes is not only are you understanding that it's important to do it, but you understand the reason why. What happens when you do some of these things? So as we go through this, we're going to be talking about emergent literacy skills. And when shared reading, a lot of your children in grade school will be doing a dialogical or shared reading experience. And it will be a little bit different than what we're talking about today. We're talking about when children are not reading yet, but they're emerging to be readers. So when they can go to school or when you start teaching them at home, they'll have all the skills necessary to be ready to read. So I don't know about you, but I like to watch TV, and sometimes the commercials entice me to buy things that I don't really need or I think that are going to improve my life, and then I get them and I realize, nope, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I have a lot of cooking utensils, a lot of things that I guess I thought would automatically make dinner for me, but I still have to do a lot of the work. So I don't know if any of you have listened to commercials or seen things, advertisements that say, buy this for your child and they can be X, Y, or Z, and it will help them. And so you get that, and usually it's because you're working with them that makes the difference. But today I'm going to tell you about some research-based things that we know that when you do with your children, it will make a difference for them as they begin to want to learn to read or as they go to school and need to read. So I'm going to go over 5 things. Now, they don't cost anything money-wise, but there is a lot of value in it. So not that they're not valuable, but they're not going to make a dent in your pocketbook. So we're going to go through each one of those. The first one is time, and that is very valuable. I don't know about you, but sometimes I wish I had an extra hour of the day. But we know that when you spend time every day with your children and you're talking to them and you are reading out loud to them and you are singing with them and you're providing books, that is what needs to happen. There needs to be a schedule or a routine where you're doing those things, or you can do them throughout the day, but making sure that you take the time to add these skills in there. So that's one of the most important things. The second one is talking. As most of you know, children before the age of 2 don't talk, but they need to have someone to listen to so they can talk. So the first 2 years, you've almost got a captive audience. After that, I don't know how much your children listen to you. Depends on what you're saying, right? But talking is important. For those of you that just have a first child or just one child, sometimes that seems a little awkward to talk out loud to someone. But listening precedes speaking, precedes, and then that goes into reading. So listening comprehension precedes reading comprehension. So children need someone to talk to them. Please talk with them instead of at them or to them. Have a conversation. Even a baby as young as 6 months, you can talk to them and you can have a conversation and jabber back what they're saying, but pay attention as you talk to them. Another thing that we need is music. We talked about this last week, and we talked about the importance of music. But music is one of the valuable things that will help children learn to read. One of the things that we do know is that rhyming is a learned reading skill. It doesn't come naturally. And so the more children hear music and that rhyming, they are able to get used to it, so you can start to share that with them and they can start hearing rhyming and then making their own rhymes. So lots of skills that we've already talked about that help with music. Another one is you do need books in your home. Now, that is one of the reasons why we provide these Ready to Learn classes in Utah County, is so that we can build your home library. It is said that you need about 14 books to have a good library for young children, but it needs to be ever-growing. So the research now shows the more books that you have with your children, the better readers they are and the better they do academically. Sorry, my mouth just is not working today. And so where do you get these books? The library. Go to the library, get a library card, make sure that you use that. Right now, the library is not available. So download an app and use the library's free apps that you can get free books and check them out for 2 weeks. I love it because I don't have to take them back. They just automatically get returned. And so using apps like that, or going to YouTube, but finding books that we read over and over again. Although having those that come in and out of your home are good, having ones that stay is just as important, making sure that you build your home library. And so books are very important. Any kind of reading material. You can have books in every room of your house. Jim Trelease, who is an expert on reading and the importance of reading out loud, says that there should be reading material in every room of your house. And haven't you noticed how much the cereal boxes get read? They have used that space very wisely. So cookbooks, magazines, any kind of reading materials. Photographs are reading materials for children, but make sure that they're in every room of your house. The next one, which is very interesting, when I was doing my undergraduate work, this was something that I never understood the correlation, but the research always showed that when a child has a male figure that they see reading, or more importantly, reads to them, that they feel like reading is important themselves. Now, it doesn't matter what the male figure is reading, whether it's a magazine or a how-to book, but as long as the child sees it, it makes it more beneficial for that child. I was very, very fortunate to grow up in a home where my dad read to us. And he read the funnies to us, or the comics, every Sunday. And I just remember that that was such a joy for me to listen to his words and to hear his expressions. And there's several comics that are our favorites in our family because my dad read them and just made a love of reading. So dads, and if you're not watching today, moms, make sure that dads are reading. We know that dads are better storytellers than women, and there's probably a couple reasons why, but they can do things a little differently. Don't try to be the same. Make reading special for each person. So, when I was talking about my dad, this goes right into this quote by Mem Fox, who was another reading literacy expert, and she really encourages reading out loud at home. And this is one of my favorite quotes because reading is not just about academics or passing a test. What we know about reading and for children to want to continue reading other than for schoolwork is it's an emotional bond. And so I want to read this quote to you. The fire of literacy is created by an emotional spark between a child, a book, and the person reading. It isn't achieved by the book alone, nor by the child alone, nor by the adult who's reading it out loud. It's a relationship winding between all three. And that brings it into a harmonious situation. And so children usually love to read because they were read to. Sometimes that's by a parent, and hopefully that's the situation that's happening in your home. But other people can take that place. Even though I loved my dad reading to us, one of my people that I accredit to my reading pleasure is one of my teachers. And I remember that we would go in and she would read, and this was in 7th grade, so I know that it's interesting that we were reading this in 7th grade, but we were reading Stuart Little. And I would just lay my head on my desk and listen to my teacher's voice, and how I loved listening to her. And all the E.B. White books were my favorite because of a teacher. So there's lots of people that can have that bond and that emotional spark. And the more people, the better, because we know that reading, that research shows that when children find it pleasurable, they do it over and over again, and it continues throughout their life, and not just as a way to accomplish a school assignment. So as we talk about those things that you can do, there's something that's called shared reading or dialogical reading. And emergent literacy.
Someone called you.
And so, sorry for the interruption right there, but as we're going through what shared reading is, I want you to think about it. And this is where I'm going to go and talk to you about, you're probably already doing these things. And so I'm going to tell you why it's important and what you get out of shared reading. Now in shared reading, there's 3 things that you want to think about, and they are simplification, engagement, and enhancement. And in shared reading and emergent reading, or the dialogical reading for an emergent reading child, it's the child that's doing most of the reading or the talking or the engaging or asking questions. I know that there's been many times, and my children can attribute this, that I read to them to get it done. We had that 20 minutes that we needed to read and we needed to check it off. But most of the time, hopefully, I sat down and I let the kids pick the book. I let the kids pick the pace. We asked questions. We made some comments. And so that's what shared reading is. And as this PowerPoint says, is that the children learn most from books when they're actively involved. And even if they can't read the words, they can be involved. And so we're going to give you some hints of how to do that. So the first way is by simplifying. And I'm sure that most of you have done this. So you've been in a doctor's office or you've been somewhere that there's no children's books or anything, so you pick up a magazine and you look for the nose on somebody in the magazine and you say, oh, there's a nose, where's mommy's nose, where's baby's nose, where's other noses, and you start looking at that. And so you're taking a book and you're simplifying it. And you can do that for a lot of books. You don't always have to have age-appropriate reading material. You can take it and simplify it. Now, one of the authors that does this for you is Nancy Trafori, and she is great. And I'm just going to step up as I read this. Now, when her books are very, very simple, And in fact, they're so simple that I remember my husband, when he read this to our daughter, I came home from work and he had read it, and he said to me, "That's a pretty stupid book." And I was appalled that my husband would take this book that's an award-winning book and say it was not good. And so I showed him how you can simplify this book. It is very simple. The words are very repetitive, but they also have the two other factors in dialogical reading, and that's engagement and enhancement. So you're engaging a child as you're reading, and then you're enhancing it where they're a part of it. So as I read this book to you, as I skim through it, I don't think I'll read the whole thing, is you can see how it is very simple, but you can engage a child with it. So here's, have you seen my duckling? Uh-oh, what's happening? The ducks should be in the nest. Early one morning. Oh no, where's that duck going? Now, if a child was here, I would be engaging with them and they would be saying, he's going to get the butterfly. Here comes Mama Duck. Do you see where the duckling is? Can you find it? It's right here. And on every page of this book, the duckling is hiding, and you can engage and enhance the words by just having your child follow along. So these are the type of books that you can find. Very simple. The words are, have you seen my duckling? He's right there. Oh, they're looking all over for him, but he's hiding so well. Have you seen my duckling? Where is he? Can you find him? Have you seen my duckling? And each page, it is very simple. And if you read it with this approach in mind, that it's simple, but you're engaging the child and you're enhancing it by letting the child read with you, you've been able to create a shared reading experience. Now, why is this so important? Well, one of the things that we know in the shared reading experience, that children that are read to like this, where they're a partner in the reading, their vocabulary and comprehension usually goes up about, is over and above a child that's just read to. Now, when I was doing the studies on that, my mind went to, okay, we have a group of children that are being read to, but they're not doing the shared reading experience. But what about the children that are not being read to? So we know that not only do we want to read to our children, and it's so important to do that, but it's also important to do this because their comprehension and their vocabulary skills are increased when compared to a child that's just read to. Now, it does not do anything for phonetic learning, and we can do other things like music and rhyming and nursery rhymes, but this type of reading does help in the comprehension realm of their reading. Now, as we go, and as children are very young, there's certain things that they like, and there's certain things that you can enhance or help them with. Children like to read about and know about things that are familiar to them. They like to look at pictures of themselves. They like to look at pictures of other babies when they're young. I've got some books, and I'm not quite sure where it is. It's right here, that it's I Am a Baby, and it's all live photos of babies. And children love things like this. They like to look at what's familiar. And so one of the books that I read, and you see on the screen, this is the page from it, is Chrysanthemum. And this is a book by Kevin Hincke. And I love Kevin Hincke books. In fact, I started reading them to my daughter when she really wasn't interested in a long story, because they are quite long. And I noticed as I was reading it that she would get to this page in the story, and she would just look. And in the actual book, it actually has, instead of 6 pictures, It's got 9 photos of the character Chrysanthemum. And I sat there and watched her every time we would read this book, that she would get it back and she would look at those photos. And all my schooling and experience came back and said, she likes those photos. I want to make a book about her. And so I took the text from this book, and I'll just read you what it says. Well, I won't, because I'm going to share with you something. And I made a book about her. Now, we did this for 2 or 3 times, where we would take and make a photo album of her and a story about her. I used to bring that to my classes, and as she got a little bit older, she got really mad and said, please don't, I was a baby. I don't want people looking at those pictures. And so by that time, I was fortunate enough to have some grandchildren. So I'm going to give you an example of what you can do. Now, when you get your book this time, you're also going to get a blank photo album that we get for just $1. And you can get more if you need them, if you have more than one child, or you can just use notebooks or paper at home so you don't have to go out. But you can create your own book. And in the handout that you'll be sent electronically will have the text from this. And it will start on the day that, and then there'll be one for a girl and one for a boy. I love it when I do this live class, because then you come back the next month and show me your books. But let me get to the one that I did for my grandchild. As I said, I just took the text of the book Chrysanthemum and I made a book, and it's called Henry. The day Henry was born was one of the happiest days of his parents' life. He's perfect, said his mother. Absolutely, said his father. And he was absolutely perfect. His name must be everything he is, said his mother. His name must be absolutely perfect, said his father. And it was. His parents named him Henry Alden Munson. And Henry grew, and grew, and grew, and grew, continued to grow. And when he was old enough to appreciate it, Henry loved his name. Now, that was just something that I did with a PowerPoint, but I would encourage you to actually do it in a book so that your children can read it. Because as children read books, they can start to read along with or tell their own stories. And you can ask them questions. And so that's what shared reading is about. So when children are really young, make sure that you are doing things reading books that have meaning to them and that are familiar with them, things that they like. But using them in a story is a great way. If you want them to clean their room, make a book about them cleaning their room. Actually take pictures of them cleaning their room and then read it to them. It's one of the things that we know that can help. I've seen so many great daycare providers make pictures or make books of their actual children that come and make stories up with them. It's a lot of fun to do that. And you are creative enough that you can make a book and your children can help you. Now, another thing that we know that a lot of parents will say to me is that, oh, Stephanie, my child will only read this book. They won't read any other book, and I'm so tired of reading it, and I just want to hide it. And it's probably not good for them because they need to learn other things. And I say, no, let them read it over and over again, especially during this time when children are feeling stressed, when you're feeling stressed. Children like what they already know. This is one of my children's favorite books, The Monster at the End of this book. And I think we read this book until the pages actually wore out. And it's still a very popular book, and we're going to send it to some of you. but just being able to read a story over and over again. One thing that I would say to maybe help reading new stories so children can be familiar with other words and other texts and other ideas is let your child pick one big book, and then you pick one, and then you pick a new one together. Right now at our house, my grandkids love the Foot Book, and I love reading it to them. But listening to those over and over again, they start to read with you, which is such an important literacy activity. Looking at the picture, knowing what comes next. They are familiar with it, and it makes them feel safe and secure. Just like your favorite songs that you listen to, your favorite artists, your favorite movies. Maybe you've watched a movie 1,000,000 times, but you still like it because you know what's going to happen next. That's what books can do for children. As a child gets older, we know that reading comprehension becomes really important. But I just want to pause here and talk about some books that you can read for very young children and some ideas. One of the things that I would say is that board books are very important in a young child's life. Why? Because they're easy to turn the pages. They're usually shorter. Also, you can chew on them, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. The words stay the same. But reading books this one is Moo Ba La by Sandra Boynton. And a cow says moo, a sheep says ba, 3 pigs sing la la la. No, you say, that isn't right. The pigs say oink all day and night. Rhinoceros snort or snuff, and little dogs go ruff, ruff, ruff. Some other dogs go bow, wow, wow, and kittens and cats say meow. Quack, says the duck, and the horse says neigh. It's quiet now. What do you say? So in this one, it's really fun to do something like this because once again, there's so much rhyming and so much familiarity that children can catch on, and they will do it with you because animal sounds are one of the first. So they can actually read this to you. Another great author is Dr. Seuss. What a magnificent author he is. And I was telling my parents just a couple days ago that Green Eggs and Ham was my very first book I could read. Couldn't read a word, but I sure had it memorized, and I loved to read it over and over and over again. The Dr. Seuss books have a lot of rhyming. They have the pictures that go on with it, and so they can rhyme right along with it, and they can read right along with it. So find the Dr. Seuss books. Another thing is finding books that have more pictures than words. I'm going to just walk up here so you can see this book. This book is called Not a Box. And again, it is an award-winning book. Not a box. To children everywhere sitting in a cardboard box. Why are you sitting in a box? It's not a box. What are you doing on top of that box? It's not a box. Now, if we were doing the shared reading or the dialogical reading, what we would do is say, where is he? What is he doing? We're going to extend that, and we're going to engage the child in that. And then if you want to enhance this book after you've read it, you're going to get a cardboard box and let your children play with it. There's where some really learning takes place, and they can do that too. So the child, why are you squirting a box? I said it's not a box. And this is another book, and there's several out there, that there's a lot of enhancement and engagement going on. Another book, or another series of books that are really good for this, is the Mercer Mayer books, The Little Monsters. In these books, you can read them, and they're delightful books, but there's usually a spider, a mouse, a grasshopper, that as you're reading them, you can have your child, after you've read the text, Where's the mouse at? What's he doing? That's engaging and enhancing. Now, how does this help with comprehension and vocabulary? Because your kids are talking. They're having to say what's happening. And so this is one of the main reasons we do this. And it's really something that where when they read this over and over again, they know what to look for. So Mercer Mayer does this a lot in his books. Another author that has a lot of great ways to do the engagement and enhancement is Jan Brett. Jan Brett has an amazing website. If you want to go to her website and get different ideas that what you can do with her books that will enhance them and engage a child. But one of the things that she does in most of her books, and again I'm going to walk up here, is that she has, this is what's before the story, this part of the story happened, and this is what's going to happen. So if you want to engage your child or enhance the book, you can say, so what happened before? You can read the text and then you can say, what do you think is going to happen next? Another thing that she does is a lot of her books are fables or tales from other countries, but she takes different ways to make that. Let me get this open. So she's got before, you read the text, what's happening now, and then what's going to happen. But she also has on a lot of her books some way to show different illustrations. This one's got wood carving, where the mitten has a yarn frame in each one of them. And then the hat has different types of picture frames. Every page has a different picture frame. Amazing how she uses illustrations and how she uses that you can enhance and engage a child while you're reading the text. And learning about other countries, she goes to different countries and finds different fables and then studies their dress and she adds them in the stories. So there's lots of ways that you can do that engagement and enhancement and the simplification if you need to. If that book is too long, you can just look at those pictures and talk about it. Now, with the dialogical reading, as your children grow, you can drop the simplification, but keep the engagement and enhancement. Keep talking to children as they read. Keep asking questions. Ask their opinion. What did you like about this book? What didn't you like? Do you like the illustrations? Keep those conversations going, which will build. Now, one of the things that we know as children enter school is if you ask any kindergartner if they wanted to learn to read, 100% of them would say yes. They want to learn to read. They're excited. It's something that they want to do. Unfortunately, we get to third grade, and we have a lot of children that we ask, do you like reading? No, I hate it. And some of that might be because of some learning delays, and they're feeling like they are not successful in school. And so we want to make sure that by third grade, before third grade, that we're finding out about those deficiencies and helping children deal with those. And some of those might follow them through their education, but they can still be good readers and love to read, even though they might have some. Then we have the children that are called resistant readers. They can read and they read well, but they don't like to read. So some of the research that has been done on resistant readers have found that a lot of kids don't want to read about stories. They don't like the silly stories, or they don't want to read about something like that. They want real life. And so they want the nonfiction books. And so that's one thing that Scholastic has really been good about, is adding some nonfiction books. I saw this book on bats, and I think that we're all sort of curious about bats right now. But talking about bats, there's also different I Spy books, recipe books. Don't discredit magazines that your kids like. Whatever they like to read, sometimes people will say that's bubblegum reading. That means they read it and then it doesn't have any value, because like bubble gum, you chew it for a couple minutes and then it loses its flavor and you spit it out. But no reading is like that. If children are reading, they're actually having to do all the things that you would be doing if you're reading a classical book. Now, classical books might have some value to ideas, but don't discredit reading different things like sports magazines. My oldest son the other day said he was reading books, a series of sports books by Matt Christopher, and he did. Anytime we went to the library, anytime we went, he picked up a Matt Christopher book. I had a child that was an excellent reader, but when the 20 minutes was over, he slammed the book and was out the door. It didn't matter if we were in the middle of the sentence. But as he grew, he found books that he loved, and now he loves reading. And so don't let them always have to read what you make them read. Let them pick out what they want to. Other things that you can do for reading comprehension when they're young is turn the pages and take turns that they read one page and you read another. And then they ask you questions about what you read, and then you ask them questions about what they did. Do the finger reading test, and this was given to me by one of my son's elementary school teachers, is that if they put their fingers, not yours, on a book and cover the words, and if they can say the words that their fingers are uncovering, then they usually can probably read that book. And so let them read as much as they can. And so that's just the finger reading level. That I don't think that that's proven theory, but it sure worked when we were picking out books. And it doesn't matter if you're still reading to your children. One of the things that I want to talk about is that I was always under the impression, and all of my experience showed that when my kids were able to read on their own, then they read on their own, that the reading sitting next to me stopped. And I remember I was fortunate enough to listen to Jim Trelease in person at a conference that I was at, and he made this quote, that parents should stop reading to their children when they leave their home. Now I want you to think about that. How many of you are like me that as soon as your child learned to read, once again, my speech today, but you didn't really read to them. Now Jim Trelease says that you should be reading 2 grade levels above where your children are reading. Do you read as a family? Right now, I'm fortunate enough in this time that we have an apartment in our house, and it is shared by my son, his wife, and 4 kids. So we get to do a lot of reading together. And you know what? I love to read Junie B. Jones out loud to my grandkids. And one of them could read it on his own. The 4-year-old couldn't, but enjoys it. And I think they enjoy watching me laugh so hard. I just love that character. But we read and we talk about the ideas. And so reading 2 grade levels above your children will let them understand the idea. My 4-year-old grandson can read very few words. He can read "No, David," and he knows his name. But he couldn't read any of the words in a Junie B. Jones book, but he can understand it. And so when your children are even in 7th and 8th grade, make it a point to read to them. Read all the time. I think one of the biggest compliments my daughter ever gave me is we were reading the Eat Cart series, and one summer I decided that the second book that we'd listen to it on tape. And after it was all over, I asked her if she liked it, and she said, "Yeah, but I really liked it when you read." And I think that that's one thing that we can do, is go back to what Mem Fox says, that reading really binds us together. It's an emotional spark. We can create memories, not just with our children, but our elementary school age children, our junior high and our high school children. If as they get to high school, we can still read. Maybe we can take turns reading. But don't discredit reading out loud. Most of us aren't afraid to sit down and watch a TV show or movie, but sometimes it does feel a little awkward to read, but it shouldn't. So please follow these very simple examples that you're probably already doing, and engaging your children, simplifying books if you need to, and then enhancing it with other things. television is a great way to enhance an activity by watching it. Find a book that it has the same theme, and then having them do something with it. Thanks for joining us. I forgot to say the key word, and that would be pencil. So again, the word is pencil. We do know that you are home with your kids. I don't know if this is a new norm for you. Talking to my children, some days they say go great, other days they're ready to pull their hair out. But we hope that at United Way of Utah County that we can help you and support you. We are Help Me Grow, which is a program that is hosted by United Way, and that we support at Welcome Baby, is starting some remote parent talking classes. And so you can get on, they'll ask some questions. It will be a Zoom conference, so you'll break out in smaller groups and you can connect with other moms. That is on our Facebook page. Once again, the keyword is pencils. Please fill out the survey. We'll send you a book, one of these books that we have here today. And I really appreciate your support. We've really enjoyed doing these remote activities. I do miss seeing your faces, but we're glad that you've supported our efforts. Thank you and have a good day.